Hello and welcome to Eco India. This week, we get you up close with the communities who are often the first responders to some of the biggest ecological and social changes our planet is witnessing. I'm Sanuta Raghu, coming to you from Mumbai in India. On the show today, let's look at how traditional salt workers in Gujarat are adapting to newer and cleaner technologies. How creating access to sanitary napkins is slowly empowering girls in a public school in Delhi. And how a set of board games could potentially change workplace communication for the better. But first, let's meet the Agaria community from the salt plains of Kutch in the western state of Gujarat. As traditional salt miners, a few generations back, the community used to manually pump out briny water onto their fields. As time passed, diesel pumps were introduced, increasing their carbon footprint greatly. But for a few years now, the Agarias are harnessing the power of the sun.
The temperature has nearly reached a scorching 40 degrees Celsius in the little run of Kutch, the eastern end of India's largest salt plain. Samju Ben has been working here ever since she can remember. It is grueling work. Salt extraction is considered to be one of the toughest jobs in the world today.
In summer, it's too hot to stay in the salt pans.
Samju Ben belongs to the Agaria community of Gujarat in western India, where 3/4 of salt in India is harvested. In the monsoon season, from June to September, the salt plains are flooded with briny water. When the water recedes in October, 35,000 Agaria families begin their annual trek from villages across the state to the Little Run to spend the next 8 months making salt.
We come with all the materials and build a small structure to live in. First, we start to make a well that accumulates the brine. Then, the men start digging and the women move the dirt to create a pan. And then we pump the water from the brine wells into the pan. Once the water starts drying, a layer of salt forms on the bottom, which we have to keep breaking into small chunks with a hoe every day. This goes on for months.
The pumps are kept running day and night to move the brine from the submerged areas into the flood basins. For years, the salt farmers have used diesel pumps, which cost them 140,000 rupees, about 1,800 euros, to operate through the season. It is a huge expense that leaves many families with no savings. In 2013, Self-Employed Women's Association, a trade union, piloted the solar pump project. 10 families participated from the start. Now, 15,000 Agaria families have joined the labor organization in the region. The solar pump concept involves using the heat of the sun as fuel during the daytime and switching to diesel pumps at night. Buying a solar pump is still an expensive proposition for the Agarias. The organization's banking wing helps the families with seasonal loans to be repaid weekly during the salt-making months. For the first time in years, the salt farmers have started to take home money as savings.
When the Agarias go back during the monsoon for 4 months, because of switching to solar, the family is able to take home around 40 to 50,000 rupees in savings. When they used diesel pumps, there were no savings. They used to borrow money from lenders for basics for the 4 months at home. There is such a difference between using solar pumps and using diesel pumps. It has really transformed their lives.
Using solar pumps instead of diesel pumps is not only better for the health of the women and their families, but also for the environment.
અત્યારે આપણે જોવા જઈએ તો વાતાવરણ ઘણું બધું બદલાય
If you notice carefully, the environment is rapidly changing around us. Imagine how much pollution has been avoided by the more than 1100 solar pumps already in use by the Agarias.
આપણા 1100 અગરિયા દ્વારા જે હવામાન આખું
We are very happy about this. But we want to go further and make sure that 15,000 Agaria families use this technology and really contribute to improving our environment.
ઘણો બધો વાતાવરણમાં બદલાવ આવશે અને વાતાવરણ પણ
Large companies in the region don't seem to care about this. But our Agaria sisters are making sure that the pollution here is less than it was earlier.
પણ આપણા જે બહેનો એ પોતે ધુમાડા કાઢતા બંધ થયા એ અમને બહુ જ ખુશી છે.
Today, Samju Ben has 3 solar pumps, and her family is a lot better off than before. She makes about 160 rupees or 2 euros per ton for salt she produces. Although the market price is much higher, a study by a self-employed women's association shows that salt farmers who have switched from diesel to solar powered pumps have seen their savings increase more than 150%. The union is now helping them improve the quality and quantity of the salt they produce so that they can negotiate a better price in the future. For now, the switch to a cleaner technology and access to microcredits is a huge step forward for the Agaria families.
Now, salt is one of the most basic, one of the most essential ingredients in any dish. But what exactly is salt and where does it come from? This explainer will take you back to your science class in school and tell you how.
About 3.5% of seawater's weight comes from the salt dissolved in it. That means if all the salt in the ocean was spread evenly over the Earth's entire surface, we would make a layer more than 500 feet thick. That's the height of a 40-story building. So what is this salt and how is it created? A crystalline compound made of sodium, chlorine and some impurities, salt found dissolved in oceans and some lakes comes from the weathering of rocks on land. Raindrops, as they fall on land, dissolve carbon dioxide from the environment and become acidic. The carbon dioxide plus water, called carbonic acid, erodes rocks and creates mineral ions or electrically charged atomic particles. These particles are carried to seas and lakes by rivers and streams where they bond in a chemical reaction to form salt. This process has been happening since the beginning of time, making salt over 200 to 300 million years old. Common salt, as we know it, is found mixed with other chemicals in bodies of water and has to be purified before we can use it for our culinary or industrial needs. One kind of salt, rock salt or halite, is simply crystallized salt chunks. The deposits formed as ancient oceans evaporated. Brine, on the other hand, is water containing a high concentration of salt, up to 26%. The most obvious source of brine is the ocean, but it can also be obtained from salty lakes such as the Dead Sea and from underground pools of salt water. Did you know that salt has even been found on Mars, leading to a theory that either Mars once had seas or that some salt on our planet might have just reached Earth from outer space?
Shifting focus now, only 12% of India's 355 million menstruating women use sanitary napkins. The rest resort to alternatives like unsanitized cloth, ashes or sand. The girls of Sulabh Public School in New Delhi are learning to manufacture their own sanitary napkins and help increase access in the slums in the school's neighborhood.
I shared my feelings from the first day of my period with my female cousins. I shared it with my mother and my teacher as well. When I talked to my father, he smiled and encouraged me to be more mature and keep my head up.
I used cotton cloth during my first period as I was unaware about sanitary napkins. I was not in this school back then. Since I have been studying here, I have become much more familiar with sanitary napkins. My mother is still using cotton cloth because she is from a rural background.
In India, there are lots of myths related to napkins and menstruation. We can't eat pickles during our period, we can't go to temple or go into the kitchen or wash our hair. And we shouldn't touch our male friends and have to keep distance from them. There are many taboos like these.
At this school in Delhi, they are breaking the taboos. 15 years ago, they began teaching students about their bodies and menstruation. It's a crucial part of the curriculum at this all-girls school. Samiksha Das Mohapatra teaches the menstrual hygiene classes. She wants her female students to stop feeling ashamed about talking about their period. Sharing their personal experience is part of the learning process. In her class, the students learn about the biological processes in their bodies and about the importance of sanitation. Only 12% of India's women use sanitary towels, while the rest resort to alternatives such as unsanitized cloth, ashes and rice husks.
I realized that this is the most sensitive issue and an integral part in a girl's life. And if I am not going to talk about it, definitely my next generation is also not going to talk about menstruation with other people and other boys and girls. So that's the thing which started triggering in my mind, and I thought, no, I need to break this taboo. I need to break this barrier where I need to go and talk to other men and other people in the community.
Samiksha Das Mohapatra teaches the girls not only about their bodies, but also how to make sanitary napkins, which they do in their own school lab. After weighing a set amount of cotton wool, they press it to the form of a sheet. The program was introduced by the Sulabh Sanitation Movement, an NGO that promotes hygiene across India. More than 5,000 girls have benefited from the menstrual hygiene education program.
Whenever I use a sanitary napkin, I feel proud because it's me who made it. My napkins are great. They don't have any of the plastic and chemicals that are in the other napkins in the market. They can harm my body. I feel very content as I know what I have used to make my napkins. It's good for my health also.
Learning about the necessity of sanitary napkins at school is just one part of the campaign. The students go one step further, spreading the word and talking to women in nearby slums about menstrual hygiene. They sell their napkins for 3 rupees or 4 euro cents each, far cheaper than commercially produced pads. This aspect of Indian society will take time to change, but some of the women in the slums are starting to understand the advantages of sanitary napkins.
I live here in the slum. Earlier I was using cloth, but then I heard about the sanitary napkins made by the girls. They are very good and are better than the ones available on the market. I really like using them.
The girls also invite women from the slums to come to the school to learn more about women's body in an informal setting.
We are playing games with these young ladies, young girls on menstrual hygiene management, and they were very happy to play these games. We also discussed taboos and the various aspects of menstrual hygiene management.
There are still many young women with insufficient sex education and access to hygiene products. The Sulabh Sanitation Movement plans projects like this in other parts of the country and in Nepal and Bhutan as well, to educate society as a whole about what menstruation is, one of the most natural things in the world after all.
Now, difficult conversations like speaking to a woman and her family about safe menstrual hygiene is what brings about real change. communication is a key factor in creating conducive environments not only at home but also at the workplace. Even today, women continue to face gender discrimination. A Paris-based designer aims to tackle this problem through enhancing communication. She has designed board games and virtual games so that workplaces in India can speak about and fight gender discrimination through gamification and team building.
Here the day starts with playing games. But this is serious work. In this public research center in Paris, designers and developers work together on educational games. Graphic designer Radhika Bhume co-designed 2 games for the Indian market. The aim is to raise awareness about workplace discrimination by making employees play. In the video game Another Day, the player acts as an HR manager and meets Priyanka, who's reporting a case of harassment. Radhika presents her work to a colleague.
She says that people whistle at her there, that they touch her. Her colleagues say she shouldn't wear short skirts, she should wear something more traditional.
The game simulates a face-to-face interaction. The employee answers questions that help the player address the problem and learn new social practices.
All the Western brands are in India now. Obviously, the girls dress in a more Western way. It's more practical. There's a kind of gap now. It's a problem we thought was important to address.
Her other game is a board game called Hired. Each player has to find out who refuses to recruit women, old people, or people from religious minorities, the most common victims of discrimination. The role play starts, and everyone is trying to unmask each other's behavior.
I see that you are both sexist and ageist.
Hired is a game to show the biases you have in India when recruiting. And the idea is to show, on the contrary, that everyone can be integrated into the team. You have to hire by looking at people's skills and not other aspects.
Radhika Bhume came to Paris from New Delhi 10 years ago. She was working in an insurance company, and she quit her job for this project.
I wanted my competence, my know-how to help for a social purpose. India gave me a lot when I was young, and I wanted to give something back to India.
She brought her artistic skills to the team, but also her deep knowledge of Indian society.
You have to adjust to Indian cultural sensitivities. You can't just go to your boss and say, look, what you're saying doesn't suit me, I'll slam the door and leave. The Indian mindset doesn't work like that. There's a lot of consultation, compromises. It's a cultural thing.
The Includo games have been played in about 25 companies in India, thanks to a local NGO that reaches out to them and introduces the project. In France, too, discrimination at work is far from being solved, as Radhika Bhume can tell.
A woman who is confident will be told she's bossy. But if it's a man who has the same kind of behavior, we're going to say, this is a leader. Women are stigmatized, even if they have the same qualities as men.
Radhika Bhume is working on adapting these games for Europe, since European organizations have also shown interest.
Moving on to another fascinating solution. An Estonian designer is using scraps of cloth left behind by large textile manufacturers to create her brand of slow fashion. Usually, most mass production manufacturers are left with an average of 18% of textile waste that is usually taken to landfills or burned. With her upcycling system, this designer has managed to save about 75% water by using just these leftovers.
Mountains of textile waste. These are pictures of a dump site in Bangladesh. Both in India and Bangladesh, tons and tons of textiles from industrial leftovers are thrown away every year. But some of it forms the basis for a new fashion line. The Estonian designer Reet Aus uses industrial leftover materials to create items like t-shirts, sweaters and dresses. She wants to be a catalyst of positive change.
If you just drive around the industrial area, what do you see? You see just textile leftovers everywhere, like mixed with plastic, like kids playing there, they are burning it. It's toxic waste, it's awful air pollution. It's like the second thing, all the toxins are going to the groundwater, the people who are living there, they are drinking it, getting sick. There are so many issues related to the textile waste.
Reet Aus cooperates with 3 textile manufacturers in Bangladesh and 1 in India. One of them is Bexim Co., one of the biggest in Bangladesh. It makes clothing for brands such as H&M, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger and Zara. More than 240 billion items are produced in its factory every year. An average 20% of what's produced becomes waste. 3 years ago, Reet Aus developed a system called UpMade. It consists of 2 main steps: a certification of the company to ensure transparency and a detailed leftovers report that's sent to her every month from the factory. This makes planning easier for her.
When they start production, then we already get needed information that we know how big will be the wastage, what kind of material. So we always make the environmental calculations as well. The software calculates how many blouses or trousers or different products we could make out of the leftovers, etc. So that makes it very easy for the big companies as well, if some bigger company would like to adapt.
Reet Aus is based in the Estonian capital Tallinn. Her shop is located in Telliskivi, a former industrial complex that's been turned into a creative hub of Estonian artists. This is where she does the sampling and designing. The designs are sent back to Bangladesh and India to be manufactured. By using leftover materials, she can save on average 75% water and 88% energy compared to conventional production. But the scheme does have some limitations.
The biggest limit is that we never know how much do we have one certain type of material. Yes, that's definitely a limit. It means that, for example, our one design, the t-shirt with the arrow, for example, we never know how many we can do with, let's say, blue and grey. But there will be always blue and grey, but the blue and grey will be always a little bit different. You know, that's the thing. But that's the part of our collection.
Despite the challenges, her method has a lot of potential, not only for her. Reet Aus now wants to convince other companies to take the same step.
Companies don't have any idea how big is the wastage after their production, so that we are helping them to make the waste stream transparent and all the production, that they can actually, in the moment when they start designing their products, they already can start designing the upcycled products as well, because they will know how much leftovers will be from the main productions.
Another element of the project is tackling post-consumer waste. With her new project, Denim, she collects old jeans from recycling centres in Estonia. A company turns them into yarn, which is used to make clothes like these. Customers appreciate the combination of upcycling and recycling.
I like the design, but also, yeah, obviously the idea that you can use up fabric that's left somewhere and make it into something really cool.
I think it's important to buy Estonian design, and I think what she's doing is something very special. So I think the design and the methods are very good, and for me it's very important. There's a strong design and there's strong ideas.
Companies could produce around 10 to 15% more by using leftovers and save a lot of money. For Rate House, it's a win-win situation. She's already working on her next collection.
Today, with the amount of ecological damage the planet has suffered, nearly all of us are first responders to some change or the other. I hope today's stories have given you the inspiration to take the first step towards creating the change you want to see for the planet. We'll be back next week with many more such stories. Until then, goodbye.
Namaste.